Hello everyone. The following presentation is a brief summary and analysis of Chapter 8 of Oscar Wilde's novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Dorian is woken by his personal servant well into the afternoon. Dorian gets up and goes about his regular routine. This includes opening invitations to parties and eating a relaxing breakfast in his luxurious library. The night before, which includes his cruel breakup with Sibyl Vane, is in the back of his mind as if it were only a dream. But Dorian sees the painting that he covered with a decorative screen, and he remembers the change in the painting that he saw. He dismisses this memory that he must have been mistaken to think the painting had changed. However, the vividness of Dorian's memory starts to haunt him. Dorian tells Victor, his servant, that he will not be accepting any visitors should anyone come by. Dorian debates whether or not to remove the screen covering the painting. A part of him feels that ignorance is bliss, but the temptation to remove the screen is too strong. And when he removes the cover, the terrifying cruelty in the face of the portrait is just as he remembers from the previous night. Dorian looks with wonder at the supernatural transformation he sees in the portrait. He notices how Basil's artistic techniques and brushstrokes have not changed, but the smirk in the portrait's face is very obvious. Dorian is shocked and feels quite sickened at the sight of the change in the painting. This change in the painting makes Dorian feel compelled to do something. Dorian acknowledges that he has hurt Sibyl Vane deeply. But what he also realizes is that he has an actual symbol of his moral soul. Dorian decides to write a long letter to Sibyl Vane, explaining his actions and offering her an apology for the way he treated her the previous night. As was mentioned before, the portrait becomes a reflection of Dorian's soul, a reflection of his true character. As the novel progresses, every time Dorian commits an evil or devious act, the portrait becomes uglier and uglier, just like his soul. At this stage, we could say that Dorian still has some good morals within him for the fact that he tries to make reparations with Sibyl Vane. Lord Henry arrives at Dorian's home, wishing to see Dorian. Lord Henry wants to see how Dorian is doing and provide him comfort after what happened with Sibyl Vane. Dorian says the event has made him realize the value of his morality, in other words, his sense of what is right and wrong. Lord Henry is pleased to see that Dorian is in good spirits, but his tone soon changes when Dorian announces his plan to marry Sibyl Vane in the hopes of preserving his moral soul. The reason why Lord Henry's tone changes is that he realizes Dorian is unaware of the tragic news. Lord Henry informs Dorian that Sibyl Vane has died. It has been reported in the newspapers, and there will be an investigation. Dorian realizes that Sibyl's death must have been a suicide, and that it is his fault, considering how he treated her the night before. Sibyl is a symbol of innocence and beauty in the novel. Her death can be interpreted as the end of innocence and beauty, as well as the death of Dorian's opportunity to regain these things for himself. After what Dorian did to Sibyl, it is impossible for him to go back and change things for the better. He can only move forward. We are reminded of Sibyl's brother James Vane's threat that he would kill anyone who dared to hurt Sibyl. We have dramatic irony here. Remember that dramatic irony means that the reader knows something the characters don't. Dorian doesn't know about James Vane's threat, but we do. This creates suspense and anticipation should James Vane and Dorian Gray ever cross paths in the future. Lord Henry suggests that it would be very wise for Dorian to avoid the scandal surrounding Sybyl's death. Lord Henry tells Dorian that Dorian is too good to be mixed up in such things. Lord Henry convinces Dorian not to worry about his past mistakes and to view the whole situation of Sybyl's suicide as an opportunity to see life from an artistic point of view. Lord Henry romanticizes the tragic event by saying that Sybyl's death is a wonderful ending to a wonderful play. Remember that during the Victorian era, keeping up appearances in society was very important, and that is why Lord Henry suggests that Dorian should not be involved in the sensationalism of Sybyl's death. Dorian would maintain his reputation for being innocent and charming, even though we know that Dorian is, of course, involved in the scandal. Lord Henry doesn't want Dorian to get involved in the scandal of Sibyl Vane's death because it would also make Dorian deal with emotions like guilt and sadness. Lord Henry wants Dorian to live life like a piece of art, a life that is beautiful, exciting, and without any serious consequences. He thinks that caring too much or feeling bad is unexciting. So when Sibyl dies, he tells Dorian not to worry about it and to see it like a heartbreaking but beautiful story, not a real-life tragedy. Getting involved in the scandal would make Dorian face reality, and Lord Henry wants him to avoid that and stay carefree. This kind of thinking is exactly what caused Dorian to reject Sibyl and what caused his painting to start looking cruel. Now that Sibyl is dead and the painting has started reflecting his true soul, there is no turning back for Dorian now. Lord Henry offers several superficial comments on marriage, and particularly on what a mess this marriage would have been. Dorian wonders why he cannot feel this tragedy as much as he believes he should, and he wonders if he is heartless. To Dorian, the death of Sibyl seems like a beautiful ending to a tragic love story. Lord Henry is pleased to extend the simile. He assures Dorian that he is not heartless and tells Dorian that the experience has been like a brilliant play and work of art. Dorian should regard the whole matter as if he were a spectator in the theatre. Dorian confesses that he has felt everything that Lord Henry has said, but that he was afraid to admit it even to himself. Dorian is assured by Lord Henry that his extraordinary good looks will ensure that he has a prosperous life. Dorian thanks Lord Henry and calls him his best friend. After Lord Henry leaves, Dorian checks the portrait again, which has not changed since earlier in the day. Apparently, the portrait registers events as they happen. Dorian wishes that he could actually observe it changing. For a moment he feels remorse towards Sibyl, but he brushes the feeling away. Vowing to go on, seeking eternal youth, infinite passion, pleasures subtle and secret, wild joys and wilder sins, he briefly considers praying that the spell of the portrait be broken. However, he rationalizes that the spell is not his to control. Besides, who would not want eternal youth? So he decides to enjoy the situation. He again covers the painting with the screen. Within an hour, he has joined Lord Henry at the opera. Both Lord Henry and Dorian Gray use the idea of art to cover up the horrific and tragic nature of Sibyl Vane's death. Under Lord Henry's influence about viewing life's events as works of art, the changing of the portrait becomes desirable for Dorian. It is almost as if Dorian can paint his own portrait by means of his actions, and his life will now literally become a work of art. The themes that appear in this chapter include beauty and youth, appearance versus reality, art, and the idea of morality. Thank you for watching this presentation on Chapter 8 of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Keep an eye out for summaries and analyses of the rest of the novel.